We finished Mother's Day brunch when I opened our college savings app. Zero balance. Mom said, "We gifted it to your twin." I didn't flinch. I contacted fraud ops immediately. By morning, all transfers were reversed. That afternoon, my twin texted, "Why'd you do this?" I replied, "Corrected the record." I sat back after the last bite of my waffle and unlocked the college savings app. The balance glowed zero. Every cent I'd saved for years wiped clean. I swallowed. Mom looked up from her omelette and said, "We gifted it to your twin. It's her turn now." I didn't blink. I tapped, "Report discrepancy." Selected, "Unauthorized transfer," and entered our joint account's last 4 digits. Then I typed a single line to fraud operations, "Reverse all transfers immediately." I locked my phone and set it on the table. No tremor in my hand. No shake in my voice. I stood and left without another word. Outside, the May air felt sharp. I dialed the bank's fraud line from my car. I gave them my details. I said every withdrawal was unauthorized. They froze the account. They promised reversals by morning. I hung up. I didn't feel relief yet. Back home, I paced the living room until the alert popped up: $24,000 restored. I pulled the phone from my pocket and stared at the number. Exactly what I'd put in. I closed the app and thought about all the deposits I'd made. Shift pay, birthday checks, every spare dollar. Then I opened messages and tapped Claire's name. Her text was waiting. "Why'd you do this?" I thought that was mine. I tapped back. Corrected the record. 3 words. No emoji. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. "Claire, you humiliated me in front of Mom." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email and saw a note from internal audit. 2 IP addresses had been flagged. 1 home network. 1 unknown device. I closed the message. The afternoon sun cut through my blinds and lines of light on the floor. I felt the weight of that zero vanish and reappear 100 times. Dinner arrived at the door unbidden. I hadn't ordered anything. The app notification said someone else picked up the tab. I set the food aside. Then messages flooded in. Mom's number, Dad's number, aunties, cousins. All with the same line. "What did you do?" I left the phone face down and grabbed my laptop. I printed last year's transactions in black and white. Airbnb deposits, dinner, cruise charges, spa add-ons. Every line showing money marked out. I scanned a page that listed a $3,800 yacht charter in San Diego. Then another for the $950 sunset dinner. Then there's Zetter's $200 deluxe spa brunch. All under the joint a wallet I funded alone for emergencies. I closed the laptop and dialed the bank again. "Include these, too." That's everything. They agreed. At 10 that night, there was a firm knock on my door. I peeked through the peephole. Dad in his fishing cap, arms crossed. I opened just enough to talk through. He shredded me with words. Ungrateful, selfish, traitor. I stayed calm. When he paused, I said, "That money was mine. I saved it for all of us. You never asked. You just spent." He stared, jaw clenched, and walked away. Inside, I paused by the kitchen island. I logged into the utility portal where I'd been quietly covering our bills. Electric, water, internet, and paused every auto pay. No more free coverage. I stood in silence as the system confirmed each payment paused. I texted my boss a heads up, flagged HR that my family drama might spill into work. Then I set my phone to do not disturb and spread the printed transactions on the counter. I circled the highest charges. I drew a line down the middle. On the left, dates and amounts. On the right, perpetrators. Mom, Dad, Claire. I stepped back and read the list again. Tomorrow, Claire would show up demanding answers. Mom would cry betrayal. Dad would seethe in silence. And I, for the first time, would face them with proof. I pressed my palm to the cool countertop and thought, this stops now. History will remember that morning. Not as brunch or a gift, but as the day I refused to stay silent. I woke in my new apartment to the buzz of my phone. Missed calls, texts. Mom, Claire, Dad. I ignored them all. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying every step I'd taken since brunch. The zero balance, the dispute, the reversal, the printouts, the freeze on utilities. Each action had narrowed my world down to hard facts on paper. No room for half-truths or apologies. I pushed myself up and grabbed the manila folder from the nightstand. Inside were the bank statements, IP logs, cafe photos, cabin screenshots. I thumbed through until my fingers paused on the map pinpointing the cabin login. I closed the folder and set it on the small dining table. The apartment felt different now. Mine in every sense. I made coffee strong enough to burn and settled into the one chair I owned. At 9 I called the fraud investigator. I confirmed receipt of all evidence. I asked for a timeline. She said 2 to 4 days for their legal team to complete the review. I noted it down. Then I asked about next steps if the bank didn't act. She suggested a police report. I thanked her and hung up. I checked my email. No replies. I opened messages and scrolled through Claire's desperate texts. Please call me. I'm so sorry. Mom says we can fix this. I deleted each one without reading. Then I tapped Mom's number and blocked future calls. I blocked Dad and Claire too. I felt a brief pang. Then it was gone. I had my folder of evidence, my statements to the bank, my new locks on every account. I was safe. Midday light spilled across the table. I logged into the utility portal. The notices still showed past due balances. I clicked resume payments. Long enough to send a final note. This account is under dispute. Payments will resume when fraud claim is resolved. Then I toggled it off again. No more free utilities. If they wanted water and power, they'd have to answer for the fraud. Just before lunch, my door buzzed. I checked the security camera. A single box sat on the landing. No note, no name. I buzzed it up and carried it inside. Inside was a small photo album, hand-bound, with no cover art. I flipped through and saw only blank pages. I dropped it on the table and walked away. It was a taunt. No apologies. No demands. Just an empty book. In the afternoon, I called the non-emergency police line and scheduled an appointment to file my fraud report. The desk sergeant warned me that identity theft cases could take weeks. I told him I had evidence. He said bring everything. I assured him I would. I hung up and began copying each document into a digital folder labeled Hate Case 1427. By 5, I felt the fatigue in my shoulders. I made a sandwich, ate standing at the counter, and mapped out my next moves. 1. Drop off evidence at the station. 2. Meet with a fraud attorney for advice on civil action. 3. Open a new, secured savings account under my name only. 4. Freeze credit reports entirely. 5. Change all passwords and enable 2-factor authentication everywhere. I wrote each step on a post-it and stuck them to the wall above my laptop. I stared at them, breathing slow and even. No turning back now. At 6:30, I logged in to set up that new savings account. As the confirmation arrived, my phone buzzed once more. A single text from Claire. We need to talk. I read it, then deleted it. I wouldn't negotiate. Not now. Not ever. I closed my laptop and stood in the middle of the living room. Papers and post-its floated in the lamplight. I knew this battle wasn't over. I'd cut them off. I'd filed the proofs. I'd gathered proof. Now I had to wait for the bank and the police to act. Meanwhile, I'd keep building my life here. My rent paid, my utilities secured, my future untouched by their lies. I glanced at the blank page photo album on the table. An empty story, waiting for someone to fill it. But I knew who would write the next chapter. Not them. Me. And I wouldn't hold back. I woke to a voicemail light blinking on my phone. I listened to it while brushing my teeth. It was my boss. She'd heard rumors that I'd gone off the rails with my family, and a few coworkers were asking questions. I called her back after work and explained there was an ongoing fraud investigation, and I had reports filed with the bank and the police. She thanked me for the clarity, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. During lunch, I checked my LinkedIn. I'd received an endorsement request from Dad's old college buddy. The message read, "Heard about your family issues. Might want to retract any reckless claims until things settle." I ignored it. I deleted the request and blocked the sender. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from the leasing office. Late payment notice. Utilities must be restored or eviction proceedings begin. I sighed and forwarded them my police case number again. That evening, I drove to the leasing office in person. I handed the manager copies of my fraud affidavit and the bank's reversal confirmation. He skimmed the pages, then said he'd hold off for now. "But you need to keep us updated," he added. I nodded and left, feeling a small sense of relief. On the ride home, I saw a flyer taped to the building entrance, "Tenant in fraud investigation. Be aware." Someone had posted overnight. My heart lurched. I tore it down and stomped it into the planter. The hallway was empty, but I felt every eye in the building on me. Back in my apartment, my phone dinged with a text from Megan. "You blew it. Now no one will help you." I stared at the message. I knew she'd seen the flyer. I deleted her contact for good. Then I booted up my laptop and drafted an email to HR, summarizing recent events and attaching my police report. I hit send at 10:02 p.m. Just as I closed the laptop, there was a soft knock at the door. I peeked through the peephole. Claire, wet from rain, clutching an umbrella. I stepped back. She knocked again. I didn't answer. After a minute, she slipped away. I watched her coat disappear down the stairs. I sat down at my desk and opened my attorney's email. He'd reviewed the folder and offered to draft cease and desist letters to my parents and sisters. He also recommended sending a copy of the police report to the building manager and HR. I replied, "Proceed," before thinking twice. At midnight, I set my phone to silent and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My apartment felt smaller than ever. The walls seemed to shift with threats and rumors. Yet I couldn't go back. I had my proof, my police's reports, and a solid plan. I closed my eyes and repeated. This is the fight I chose. Tomorrow I would deliver those letters. I would meet with my attorney. I would show my boss the cease and desist. And I would stand my ground. They could smear my name, threaten my lease, even pull coworkers aside. But they couldn't erase the evidence. I had built my own fortress out of bank logs and legal filings. And I was ready for the next wave. I woke to a flurry of email alerts. 3 from my attorney, 2 from HR, 1 from building management. I drained my coffee and opened the first attorney email. He'd sent draft cease and desist letters to my parents, sisters, and dad's old friend who'd blasted me on LinkedIn. He recommended personal delivery for maximum effect. I printed the letters and slipped them into envelopes. At 9 I walked to the leasing office. I asked to speak with the manager. He looked up from his desk, surprised to see me. I handed him a copy of the police report and a letter outlining the harassment. Flyers in the hallway, false notices taped to doors. He read silently. Then he nodded. "I'll circulate this to the board," he said. "No more leaflets, or we'll take action." I thanked him and left, feeling a faint lift in my chest. Next I drove to my parents' house. I hadn't been back since the cabin trip. The curb was empty, no cars. I parked across the street, envelope in hand, and crossed to the front door. It opened before I knocked. Dad stood there, face pale, hands empty. He didn't speak. I said, "These are for you," and slipped the envelope into his hand. He looked down, saw the bold letters, cease and desist, and closed the door without a word. I turned and left before he could call me back. On my drive home, my phone buzzed. A string of texts. From Mom. "How could you?" From Claire's. "We need help." From Megan. "You've gone too far." Then a final one. From Dad's old friend. "Your career is over." I deleted each aggressively, one by one. I tapped Dad's number, hit block, and watched it disappear from my contacts. Back in my apartment, I spread the remaining letters on the table, 1 for Mom, 1 for Claire, 1 for Megan, 1 for Dad's friend. I addressed the last to my Uncle Jeff. He wasn't entirely innocent. He'd tipped me off but also shared private family details with his circle. I sealed each envelope and left them by the door ready for pickup. Midday, I heard a knock. I peeked through the peephole. 2 uniformed officers stood there holding a subpoena for my bank records. My heart skipped. They needed originals, not copies. I opened the door and let them in. They explained that Mom and Dad had filed a civil suit over unjust enrichment, demanding I repay $23,000 for family support. I handed over my folder of evidence, the signed affidavit, the police case number. They collected the documents and left saying, "We'll be in touch." I sank onto the couch. Civil suit. I'd expected criminal investigations, bank audits, eviction threats, but a lawsuit was new terrain. I logged into my email and saw a message from the attorney. He drafted my response. Petition to dismiss with evidence attached. He asked me to review by evening. I opened the draft and scanned it. It was tight, precise, laying out every charge, every IP log, every print. I clicked approve and hit send. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a group chat notification from an unknown number. I tapped it open. Family group. "Mom, I have called everyone. No one will speak to you. Claire, I can't believe you turned me in. Megan, you've lost us all. Dad, you will regret this." I stared at the screen. My heart pounded, but my hand was steady as I blocked the entire chat. No more windows into their coordinated backlash. Evening fell, and I checked my mail. Only one item, a plain white envelope, no stamp. Inside was a single page titled, "Demand for immediate withdrawal of lawsuit." At the bottom, a typed line, "Family bond over rules." No signature. I crumpled the paper and dropped it in the trash. I made myself a simple dinner. Rice and beans. And ate standing at the counter. I thought about tomorrow, court filings, attorney calls, bank follow-ups. I thought about how far they'd go to reclaim control. And I thought about my own path forward. New accounts, new evidence, new boundaries. Before bed, I updated my wall of post-its. What deliver remaining letters, la file ante, harassment motion ella confirm subpoena response complete, schedule next court date, FA prepare witness list. I stepped back and surveyed the room. The papers, the post-its, the empty photo album. All reminders that this was no longer about money. It was about respect, trust, and autonomy. I flicked off the light and lay down, phone on silent. Tomorrow they would try again. But I was ready. My fortress of evidence was built, my legal team in place, and I was no longer alone. I closed my eyes and waited for the next wave. Morning came with a text from my attorney at 7:12 a.m. Court date confirmed for June 15. Prepare your witness list. I unlocked my phone and stared at the message. June 15, 2 weeks away. Plenty of time to sharpen my case, but not enough to forget why I'd started this fight. I made coffee and reviewed my notes. On the counter lay a printed timeline: brunch balance 0. Instant dispute, reversal confirmed, evidence gathered, police report filed, cease and desist letters sent, subpoena response delivered, civil counter, petition approved. Each entry was a bullet point in the story of how I took back control. I highlighted the most critical moments in yellow. Those would be my primary exhibits. At 9, I called the courthouse clerk to confirm filing procedures. They reminded me to bring original subpoenas and 2 copies of every document. I checked my folder, 15 exhibits total. Bank logs, IP maps, photos, emails, police case number, cease, and desist letters. I ticked them off one by one. Around noon, my phone buzzed with an email from the leasing office. They'd reviewed my evidence and decided not to pursue eviction. Utilities would remain on while the fraud claim proceeded. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. One less front in this battle. By mid-afternoon, I headed to the attorney's office. He greeted me in his modest suite and slid a binder across the desk. Inside were my pleadings, organized and tabbed. He walked me through each section: jurisdiction, cause of action, factual history, legal demands. We practiced my opening statement. A concise summary of the unauthorized transfers and the impact on my life. On the drive home, I thought about my parents and sisters. They'd accused me of betrayal, humiliation, desertion. They'd filed suits demanding I repay money they never asked for. They'd plastered flyers, threatened my lease, tried to rally relatives against me. And yet, here I was, my name cleared, my future intact, ready to present my case in open court. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a simple dinner of rice and beans. I reviewed my witness list: the fraud investigator, the leasing manager, Uncle Jeff if he would testify about device cloning, and myself to walk through the timeline. I thought of the questions they'd ask. Why didn't you confront them first? Why freeze utilities without warning? Are you sure you didn't overreact? And prepared calm, factual answers I disputed as soon as saw the charges. I froze utilities after finding the full extent of unauthorized withdrawals. I took every step to document the fraud before escalation. After dinner, I drafted an email to HR summarizing the upcoming court date, and offering to provide a statement supporting my professionalism despite personal turmoil. I hit send and felt a small weight lift. My workplace knew the facts. At 10 p.m., I walked to the building's rooftop patio. City lights flickered below. I held the blank photo album I'd received and turned its pages one last time. Empty, ready for new memories. I set it on a bench and left it there, a symbolic gesture. I was discarding the empty stories they'd tried to force on me. I locked the patio door and headed back inside. On my desk, a folder of evidence waited. The post-its on the wall glowed gently in my desk lamp's light. June 15 teen court appearance in exhibit review. By June 10 witness prep. By June 12 utility follow. Up June 16 I erased any stray doubts. None of this was about revenge. It was about truth and accountability. It was about refusing to be erased by lies and silence. I lay down and shut off the light. My phone lay face down beside me, silent. Tomorrow I would wake, review my statements, and continue building my case. And on June 15 I would walk into that courtroom, stand at the podium, and tell the truth of what happened. No flinch. No apology. Just the facts. History will record families torn apart by greed and restored by accountability. On that day, I would add my name to that record, not as a victim, but as the one who insisted on his own story. I closed my eyes, ready for whatever came next.